Hey, man.
What's up? You have a new backdrop.
What are you talking about? It's always been like this. Just kidding.
I've seen books behind you. I know I have. I'm not crazy.
I do. I had I had this final banner knitted together by child laborers, but it's an exchange program. It's child laborers in Britain, and it's to make the Bangladeshi kids feel better.
Yeah, if it's British kids, I don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, hello, governor. Thank you for 6 pence.
Super adorable. Super adorable.
Like, I think just to make it fair, rather than stopping child labor, we should just let Brits and Aussies and American kids, American white kids, like suburban white kids, do child labor. That'll even it out.
Yeah. I think as long as you have that, I mean, that's what I've always been opposed to, is just the inequality of the child labor. If you have them all doing it, then I'm down.
Yeah, like we should allow other countries to drone strike us, and then it'll be what our drone striking will make it okay.
I'm not opposed to bombing innocent civilians. I just don't like bombing inequality.
Yes.
The inequality of where gets bombed is not fair.
Exactly. That's why I voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because I wanted diversity in warmongering. That's what I wanted. So I'm so glad we're on the same page, buddy. This is exciting.
And it could be that I don't quite understand why certain child labor, why certain activities get past the child labor laws. Like, why occasionally I've been known to watch some of the professional tennis matches. Why are ball boys? Why are there 12-year-olds like, here's your ball, sir? Like, I don't understand why that's legal.
There's just same thing with Major League Baseball. It's just a ball boy that just like, why he just make him scurry around. What do they give him? A hat and that's it?
Yeah, and apparently if you have Down syndrome, then they can make you work. Like, it's usually like they like it's saying at the tennis matches, they'll often have like a little hospitalized kid come and like flip the coin. Like, why? So apparently if you're sick, then it's fine.
Then it's all right.
Yeah.
I think, again, I'm all in favor of suburban white kids working in sweatshops. I think I think we should try to push that bill forward.
See, I'm very progressive. That's why I had this made by little British kids.
British kids. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets episode 42 with Lee Camp and Camp Elwood.
I'm a little sad to see that the drill sergeant haircut is growing out, because now it's starting to look like a drill sergeant who like had a rough weekend, just found out he got divorced or something. Like, but I felt like it really kept me in line. We're going to be totally out of line now.
Yeah, this is a drill sergeant that like didn't get a crew cut every 5 days. It's like, I don't know. I haven't got a haircut in like 9 days. I don't know anymore, man. I just can't. I'm on the brink.
What's the point anymore? I thought it all made sense. You bomb, you kill people, but now I'm not so sure.
I don't know, man. I'm just looking like a hippie right now. I'm just like a drill sergeant, what a hippie drill sergeant would look like. I'm just a godless hippie with hair rolling all over the place. Who knows?
Well, like, he's let himself go, but just for 9 days. It's just
for 9 days.
Just
the 10th day. He's going to dial it back in on the 10th day. The 10th he's absolutely going to go, yeah.
He's going to wake up and go, what the fuck was I thinking?
Just, down to the wire. Let's do this like I'm a new recruit. Just walk around in a white t-shirt yelling at himself. You disgusting maggot, into a mirror. Which that sounds like what I did this morning. Well, we've got kind of a big subject to tackle.
We do. And I know that you are an expert movie guy. So
I've watched a lot of movies, and I found this list that was literally given to someone through the Freedom of Information Act of all of the Hollywood movies that have received government funding. And some of them are, as you would suspect, it started back in World War II. A lot of World War II go fight the Nazis kind of stuff. But then it really has been going on for a while. Something I've talked about on my show before, Political Vigilante, is like this, the CIA and the State Department have script approval on like the Marvel movies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And just about anything that has any kind of military weaponry, military vehicles, military locations, which almost all of those films nowadays have. So the Pentagon will not allow them to use any of that stuff without a script approval.
Yeah, the Pentagon makes a very clear trade-off. Like, we'll give you all this gear. Like, you can use it. You can, we'll have guys fly it around for you. You can do it whatever you want. But we just got to sign off on the script. So if there's anything in there that's like a negative portrayal of the military or the U.S. State Department or American foreign policy or anything like that, sorry, you're going to have to rent this gear from somebody else.
Yeah, it's gotten I think that, and we can get more into this with the individual films, but I think that it's gotten much more sophisticated. I think that for years, it was like the military, when they got script approval or when they were funding something, it was just like a straight up like G.I. Joe, look how awesome our military is, saving the world from the bad guys. Now, especially, with the, Marvel movies and things like that, the military doesn't always come out as like the hero. They don't always come out as like glowing, but they've made sure it's either focused on like a bad apple, or it's like there's certain things they've made sure so that the propaganda can continue. Whereas it used to be so in your face. And I think they realized that the in your face approach doesn't impact people as well anymore, because people see that and they go, oh, this is propaganda. But when it's just, like, I don't want to jump ahead, but it was just one really cool, nice CIA guy in Black Panther, it's more like, oh, they're not pushing propaganda.
Yeah. It's that kind of stuff. The CIA won't be presented in like 100% glowing light, but it's always like, sorry, I'm allergic to propaganda. It's always
I also start puking out my ears, so beware for that. Get ready.
It's always some type of like, at the end of the day in the movie, the CIA might get a negative, but it's always some sort of like, look, we need them to kind of do the jobs nobody else wants to do. Like, it's always sort of presented in that kind of like, hey man, someone's got to take out the trash. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Like they probably shouldn't have done that one thing. And that guy feels really bad about shooting that kid. But in general, someone's got to do this shit.
Yeah. It's, I was literally just watching a movie last night on Netflix, called The Take, with Idris Elba and some either Irish or Scottish actor doing a really bad American accent where they overpronounce the R's way too much to sound like an American. Because
I think I got. Is that the one? I think I got halfway through it and I realized it was just too much propaganda to keep going.
Yeah, it is so. It's Idris Elba. Here comes some spoiler alerts, kids. Idris Elba is a CIA operative in Paris, and there's some rogue outfit within the Paris police that is trying to make something look like it's terrorist bombing, but it isn't. But of course, he breaks all this international law, but how else is he going to, get it done? You
gotta save the world when push comes to shove, man. You gotta listen. Sometimes when you gotta kill the bad guy and there's an old lady in front of him, you gotta shoot through the old lady to get the bad guy. It's just how it works.
And so the movie has all of this, like, Idris Elba is reprimanded for not playing well with others. He's this lone wolf guy.
He's a loose cannon.
He's a loose cannon. He's a lone wolf. But
if only they made. I wish they made some movies about that guy. I wish there were some movies about loose cannon.
It's never been covered before in the history of cinema or television. Ever has there been a lone wolf loose cannon?
Every time there's a movie about a military or activity or CIA or cops or whatever, it's always a real just nice group dynamic. It's never a lone wolf.
Everyone working together for a common goal.
Yeah.
Questioning each other, like, wait a minute, that's not procedure. There's none of it. It's always that.
We then starting every morning with like a quiet prayer session.
Sure, they do a lot of meditation and they're doing yoga at the precinct or the barracks or whatever, and really like, how do we end war? There's a lot of discussion like that amongst these characters.
There's a lot of times where the guy gets pulled aside and he's like, sure, we can arrest this one guy, or we can talk about what about the system has made this like this. There's a lot of those discussions.
That's all those movies have. That's all any of them have is like, what created all of these terrorists? Is it the CIA deposing democratically elected leaders since 1953 in the Middle East? Or, yeah, they never have that. It's always just, they're radicals.
Like, I know. It literally is like both the character and the storyline is parachuted into a reality. It's like there was no past. There was nothing that led to this. You just dropped in like, oh, he's got to stop the terrorists. Who knows where they were born terrorists? They came out with fucking Kalashnikovs in their teeth out of the womb. That was day one, born terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to ask where the Kalashnikovs came from. We're not going to ask who funded any of this. We're not going to ask any of those questions.
No.
We are just going to. So I'm watching this movie, and Idris Elba is, of course, playing outside of the rules, and he's got to get it done, and they've got to watch out for diplomacy, but it's always then even that, like, hey, that's international law is always sort of portrayed in this like, great, more bureaucrats, like, just let me
just let me shoot through the old lady. Why do I have to fill out paperwork?
It's just an extension of every Dirty Harry movie of just like, oh yeah, read this scumbag his rights. You got the right to, just like, you got the right to eat lead, punk. Like every. I mean, it's just the slicked up version of that.
Even with James Bond, it's always Dame Judi Dench pulling him in and being like, "Why did you do that? That's against policy."
Yeah. Do you know what I've had to the prime minister is furious or whatever. There's always, which is the same. It's the same model as the cop of like, the mayor's been crawling up my ass because of your hot dog antics. Like, it's the same model.
As if the mayor gives a fuck what the cop.
The mayor's like, what? The mayor needs the police union to get reelected. Just ask Garcetti at LA. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Like,
the mayor is elbow deep in his intern. He's not really worried about what the cops are up to.
Elbow deep in his intern is going to be the name of my next album. And
spoken word album.
Spoken word. It is a lot of poetry and spoken word.
Poetry, yeah.
I'm transitioning into that because comedy's not working out. So, yeah, it's another example of just, it's the same plot line. It's the same story. It never asked the question, what created this crime? What created the terrorists? Why are we doing this? Well,
and those references are the type of thing that the Pentagon would cut out with their script approval is,
right.
References to earlier things. In fact, and I don't know if we were going to get to this one, but one of the things they insisted on cutting out of the Hulk movie was it being called Creation of the Hulk, being called Operation Ranch Hand, because that was a real operation they had that, I can't remember what it was, but whatever gruesome shit they were up to. But so they didn't want people to go, hey, maybe I should Google that.
Well, I'll cover Operation Ranch Hand when I get to the R's.
Yeah. That's a while. That's actually Government Secrets number 276 is Operation Ranch Hand. So
it'll be exciting. We'll go all into it, and I'll reference the Hulk movie. It'll be a great tie-in. So
they changed the name to Angry Man or something, which is a little on the nose for the Hulk. I feel like
Operation Angry Man is a little on the nose.
It's Operation Ranch Hand was Agent Orange.
Ah, of course.
Dumping Agent Orange on the Vietnamese.
And giving American vets cancer.
American vets, Vietnamese children, Vietnamese adults,
yep.
Probably plenty of animals, just about everybody.
The poisoning the food supply in Vietnam, the water supply, good stuff. So yeah, we can't have that in a kid's comic book movie now, can we? It's so do you want to put up some of the graphics that we have for the
Sure, yes.
Because I started trying to find that email, and then I got frustrated, and I was just
Oh, I thought it was because we still haven't found a way for you to actually hit present on the slideshow.
That might have something to do with it. All right,
that's actually a better. You should go with that excuse, Griff. That's a better excuse than I got. I got tired looking for the email.
It is. It doesn't make me sound as dumb as the other one. Just makes me sound dumb. Like, oh, great, Graham can't figure out some simple tech thing. It's just like.
Speaking of simple tech, we're on a whole new level here. I have figured out how to go backwards in the slides. So.
Whoa!
Everything has changed.
Holy shit! This show is just skyrocketed to a whole new level.
I'm pretty sure this is going to break us. This is gonna be the thing that really makes us pop.
It's probably because it's part of CIA's Operation Electric Slide, which allows you to go backwards. We're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. All right, should I share this?
Yeah. All right, take it away.
Tequila.
You can tell me to go to the slides if you want.
Okay. We found this advice, and there's also several stories. I'm proud of how the CIA helped produce Zero Dark 30, which is obvious. Look, we're just going to touch on the obvious ones. Obviously, the CIA is going to do Zero Dark 30 because it's this glowing portrayal of how we got Osama bin Laden and how great the Navy SEALs are. And not to take
it doesn't have. It's been years since I watched it. Doesn't it though show some torture that didn't achieve its purpose? So they kind of were like, yeah, there was some torturing that didn't really help, but
barely. I mean, they barely put it in there. And I'm noticing Jessica Chastain, one of the reasons why she's had a fine career, not to take anything away from her acting abilities, she has no problem playing all of these push CIA movies. She has no problem with it at all.
Right.
She keeps getting work because she keeps pushing this stuff, and then shows up at the Oscars in $60,000 in jewelry and clothing and says, I'm tired of women not being represented in Hollywood. It's like, okay, thank you.
I like pushing movies that actually manufacture the consent for us to bomb women overseas, but I just don't feel that women are represented enough in these award shows. Really, that's where I draw the line for women in our society, in the world, is they need to be on the stage more at award shows.
It is the pinnacle of white feminism, of just like, there's not enough women represented, and like, well, how come in the best female, acting category, it's all white women? Oh, shut up. You hate you. I hate you. I'm dumb, or whatever her thing is. That's happened numerous years where they're like, we need more diversity. There's no women in the best director category, which that happened a couple years ago. And that's a fine criticism. There's great female directors. And then literally the very next category is like best actress in a film. And it's all white ladies. And no one's like, okay, so only white ladies can act? Like, what are you talking about? So she's kind of typical of rich white lady Hollywood, screaming from her mansion that it's not fair, sounding just like a rich lady at a country club going, the women's locker room isn't as nice as the men's locker room.
But go see my movie so you think it's awesome that we're torturing women that are not white overseas.
Yeah, and because we're torturing men in a patriarchal system, it's okay. Because that's okay. So obviously Zero Dark 30, and again, Zero Dark 30 oddly doesn't go into how the CIA worked with Osama bin Laden years ago, and doesn't go into, again, our lineage in the Middle East and how we backed Saddam Hussein in the Iraq-Iran war, which goes all the way back to Mossadegh, who we've talked about on this show, democratically elected. It doesn't go into any of that. It's just like, we got him, paratroop in, guys, and how they do that.
Yeah.
And so these are some other movies. Atlantic calls on Hollywood to produce more government propaganda, which...
Oh yeah, that's funny. It's an Atlantic article where I don't know who the fucking writer was, but they were saying that China's been doing too good of a job at creating propaganda movies, and unfortunately the United States doesn't. But the article, this is a fairness and accuracy article criticizing it, and the article mentions in a parenthetical, they go, oh, except the Department of Defense does have script approval on many things. And you're like, wait, so the government doesn't create enough propaganda except for everything the DOD is involved in?
Everything. And to be fair, so within the movie industry, here's what China has started to do. And this is how they push their propaganda, which the Chinese government does. But then a typical American fashion, we act like, what? They can't push propaganda. Only we can. It's just like, you can't sell more drugs than my drug dealing cartel, Lee. That's bullshit. Like, right. So what the Chinese, for those of you who watching this don't know about the movie industry, this is so China, since it's had an economic boom in the last 10 years or so, 20 years, if you could say, but in the last 10, they now have the biggest movie going market in the world, because a bunch of, this is a country of 1.5 billion people, many of whom got pulled out of poverty into the middle class and have more money, and they want more Western things. So they have some crazy number or whatever. This isn't an exact number, but let's say America has 3,000 movie screens around America. They've got something like 10,000 in China. I forget what the number is, but it's a huge market. We're only
I think it's 800 billion.
800 billion. That's a real number, and spoken with real words.
Yeah.
So what the Chinese government does is they say, if you want distribution in China, you need to shoot some of it in China using Chinese actors. And so these big studios go, absolutely. And China does the same thing. The Chinese government is always depicted in a good light. There's no mention. You can't talk about the Dalai Lama or Taiwan.
Right.
You can't be critical of the Chinese government in any way, shape, or form. So you'll see these big budget movies. And I'll give you another great example. So they did a remake of the 80s movie with Patrick Swayze, Red Dawn, which was, again, Reagan era Cold War. The Russians are going to attack us, and a group of football players in Wyoming stand up and fight the Russian army, led by Patrick Swayze and C. Thomas Howell and Charlie Sheen and a bunch of young ruffians, all white cast. And so they did a remake of that movie about 5 years ago, and it was China invaded America.
Oh, yeah.
And the Chinese government went, no, it's not. If you want distribution in China, that's going to change. So they went through the whole movie and digitally changed the flags and everything and made it North Korea.
So they had a bunch of probably Chinese American actors as these bad guys, but they're being called North Koreans.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you watch that movie, you see they changed the uniform, it's just like they CG'd. They went back in post-production and changed everything.
So yeah, because China's trying to do their own thing, but this has led to and I just looked it up. It's like China has like 80,000, and the U.S. has like 40,000 movie screens. Okay. So they've got over double what we have. But one of the most annoying things is now that Hollywood has realized that the big money is getting, popular in China, there's an increase in these movies, especially with some of the superhero movies, where it's like, I think because they figure, well, some people are watching with English as a second language, and then others are reading the closed captioning. But if you have people talking in longer, more complicated sentences, the closed captioning gets to be too much to keep up with, or something like that. So you have these, some of the worst of the superhero movies, where literally like the whole dialogue is like, "I will kill you now. You are bad." Like, and it fucking drives me nuts. It's like there should be something like on the billboards where it's like, this is one of the superheroes meant for adults. Like an adult human brain can enjoy this. And then it should have others that are like, hey, this is Batman versus Superman. This is for 7-year-olds or something.
It's absolutely for 7-year-olds. And part of it is to propagandize a whole new group of kids into American exceptionalism.
Yeah.
Like, I look at all the movies I watched as a kid, and there was a lot of American exceptionalism. It was the era of the 70s where so here's a great book for people to read called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. And it's, the studio system started to collapse in the late 60s, and they started making all these movies where they were letting the auteur, director, filmmaker who could like just give in their vision and provide. So you had the movie Easy Riders started in 1968. You had all these movies that were anti-war, Deer Hunter. We've talked about them before. Apocalypse
Now was a big one.
Yep. Yeah. Then you had 3 Days of the Condor. You had movies like Network that showed corporate America. You had a lot of movies.
Oh my God. Network is one of the best movies ever made.
It predicted the world we're in, basically predicted it in the 70s.
It nailed it all, and it's just a fucking genius movie.
It's a genius movie. And so, and then what happened in the 80s is the big corporations started buying up the studios, and that's when the blockbuster started. And not
you mean the stores on the corner with 3 copies of City Slickers? You're talking about that kind of blockbuster?
That's part of it, Lee. That's absolutely part of it. Don't forget to go buy Blockbuster stock right now. And some decent, movies always sneak through or make it through or whatever, but it's really then this state of Hollywood that we're in now, and this is pre-COVID. I don't know how now it's all streaming service, but that was why box office was really slow. And that's why you had this huge gap. You'd had these $150, $200 million movies, the Avengers movies and the Marvel movies, and then you had like $2 to $5 million movies. There wasn't a lot of like $20 to $50 million dramas being made. And so anyway, that's what happened as a result of the sort of corporate takeover of Hollywood in the 80s. So I mention it a lot on Political Vigilante when we talk about the corporate media, and that's part of what this segment is about. We're not just talking about news outlets. We're talking about how we both talk on our respective shows, how the State Department gets its talking points into CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all of them, and they get their talking points into all of these Hollywood movies.
Yeah, and the change you're speaking of, there's 2 key documents that really lay out a plan to create that change you're talking about. And we could do segments in a future Government Secrets on both of these, either of these, the Powell Memo and the Trilateral Commission report. And they both, in their own way, basically said, like, especially the Trilateral Commission said, there's a crisis of democracy. This is in the late 60s, 70s. We have too many people thinking they're involved in the system, and they're standing up and they're in the streets, and we're losing control. And they're lamenting the fact that back when Truman was president, you had just a group of men, and it was men, a small group of white men deciding all of the pivotal, core things about the country. And they're lamenting that that's not the case anymore, that people have gotten too active, they're voting, they're caring about, changing things. And it is no longer possible to govern in the same way with just a tiny group of men. And so they lay out ways to get back to that, to get back to a full kind of oligarchic control. And one of the key ones was the media needs to fall in line. And like you're saying, they didn't just mean the news media. They meant all the media, the Hollywood. We need to have a propaganda system that is far more effective and doesn't allow people to think outside the box in the way that has been happening.
Yeah, and it's like, because if any TV shows, not any, but most TV shows and movies in the late 60s, early 70s, you couldn't put something out there that didn't have some commentary about civil rights, women's rights, and the Vietnam War. You had to comment on it. You had to have an opinion on it, even if it was like a John Wayne "we're for it" thing. And so you saw that was, and sometimes it was,
even if it was just like an extra in the background getting an abortion, just something in there.
Yeah, just something like that. But even like, I was a little kid and I watched a lot of cop shows, and there was like Vietnam. Like, I used to watch Hawaii Five-0, right? And I loved that show. And there was episodes that dealt with Vietnam vets having, they didn't call it PTSD back then, but like, there was
one. Called it loop-de-loo.
They call it the old war banana brain. They called it.
they called it a woohoo.
They called it someone's got spaghetti helmet.
I think it was spaghetti helmet for a while, actually.
That was a DOD term. But let's go back to look at now some of to talk about the Trilateral Commission thing that you brought up, which is awesome. And we could do a whole entire episode on that. Let's go into how it's not just the obvious choices of like Zero Dark 30. And then this is how they've become more sophisticated, is they'll put in one little scene that's like kind of critical, just like an article in the Washington Post, or New York Times, or whatever will say, propaganda. Here's one line of kind of truth. And so they can say, see, we covered both sides, like.
Well, and it's more effective propaganda because people subconsciously see this stuff that's true, and it makes them comfortable with the film or the piece or the segment. And like if you read an NPR article, NPR will like about foreign policy, they'll be like, while Israel has, unfortunately, bombs have killed some children or something like that, and then they'll go into their propaganda. And that opening or whatever, that truth in there allows people to like let their guard down, like, oh, I'm getting the truth.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great point. So let me go back to this now. Look at these movies. Okay. Stripes is a comedy. And I kind of get it, but I'm also like, this movie, when I first watched it as a kid, I kind of thought it was mocking the military. As a kid, you think, oh, it's Bill Murray showing the military is all nonsense. And he's like, oh, yeah, that marching around, it's so nonsense. And he's like, and they kind of mock the military. But then at the end of it, they do go kick the Russians' ass with that RV. They go into
and it's tough. And with most of these films, I don't know about Stripes or Biloxi Blues, but with most of these films, it's not usually the military, or I don't know if it's ever that the military was like, let's hire a writer to write this film about how awesome the military is. Most of the time, it is a script exists from a good writer or whatever, and the production company's getting ready to make it. And then the DOD or whoever, their entertainment department, which apparently they actually have one. I thought that was for, magicians and hypnotists to wander around the halls of the Pentagon and really show people a good time. But no, they review these scripts and they alter them enough so that they can be comfortable with what it's relaying. So if a script came to them that was Stripes and it was, look how crazy and nonsensical the military is, and they added some stuff in there so that they could still be the military achieving the goods at the end, getting the goods.
Yep. And that's how you see how sophisticated it is. Now, the Iron Man, I'm not surprised at all. Top Gun, obviously, was literally like, this was written like the Navy's recruiting department went, hey, let's put this in there. Because there's all this stuff that makes like, I remember watching an interview with the Navy consultant on it. He was a naval pilot. And he's like, there's a locker room scene And he's like, these are officers. They don't have locker rooms. They go back to their nice homes. He's like, well, we paid a lot of money for Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise, so we need them without their shirts on. And it was like, all right, we'll put them in a locker. And the ones that are, and Transformers is not surprising because
they had to get popular support behind a VW Beetle that can turn into a helicopter.
Yeah, this is, I mean, literally, it makes sense. It's like, so then when they rolled out that cop robot dog in New York last month, everyone's like, well, I saw Transformers and, Michael Mann.
Yeah, generally when something turns into something else, it saves the planet. So I think that should be fine.
It explains too why the director of those movies is he's the worst director ever. He's so bad, so dumb. He's the butt of many of my jokes, but I remember thinking, I watched a few minutes of Transformers. So this is back when Transformers was just becoming a cultural thing. And I was like, everybody's talking about it. Like, and it's like, it's everywhere. And so I was like, all right, after like 3 years of ignoring it, I was like, I'll watch a few minutes. And I got through like 15 minutes and I was like, this is utter garbage. And like, it's just this new form of movie making where you can't see what the fuck's going on. And it's just tons of shit thrown at the screen endlessly so that you feel dizzy and you fucking, you need to take some dopamine or something just to settle your stomach. And not dopamine, Dramamine. And I was like, this reminds me of like the action scenes from Armageddon. And then I found out it's the same fucking dude. He's the worst. I went on a crazy run when I had a movie review podcast called Comedy Film Nerds, which I think you can still listen to. We did it for over 10 years. I went on crazy rants with that. Like I hated that guy so much. And it became like a thing, like a running joke in our show. It's not surprising because it's just like, here's some dumb bullshit to make people like robots that murder, like that's all it is. Make it shiny, make it cool. But then this is Karate Kid 2 and 3.
So what? Which one's the one where he fights his milk lady? Is that in there? I don't know if I ever even saw it. No, I probably saw 2 and 3 probably at some point, but 1 was obviously the main one. Yeah,
I guess 2 and 3. One of them they go back to Vietnam or Japan or something, or so there's. I don't know. Those are so.
He falls in love with like a Asian girl, right?
I think so.
And her family won't accept it, something like that.
Yeah. And then the 4th one, I think, was with Hilary Swank. A young Hilary Swank is like Karate Kid, The Reckoning, or Karate Kid Goes to College.
Karate Kid ages gracefully into middle age. That was a good one.
On Golden Karate Kid Pond.
And then they did the crossover between Weekend at Bernie's and Karate Kid, and they had Mr. Miyagi kind of propped up and with sunglasses on, and they still training the kid who was at that point, he was 43, but Miyagi. Even in death, he was still quite a talented teacher, as long as you had the right type of music playing, because he couldn't move without the music going. Am I getting that right? I think I have that right.
That's totally right. That's that. Remember the Karate Kid Fast and Furious crossover? Fast and Karate Furious. That was good.
They just throw the word karate into any film title. Do you remember Top Karate Gun? That was incredible. That was really solid.
And they just have one scene where the guy goes like that, and then that's how they justify putting karate in the title. That's it.
And Apocalypse Karate Now was not bad.
The Karate Father.
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of really good movies. What else?
And Pet Cemetery was the one where it was that hilarious one where the pets run the cemetery, right? And there's a lot of hijinks. There's like a ferret as a mortician. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. It's like a spring break movie, but with pets.
Yeah. What military? I never saw Pet Cemetery, but I'm even right now I'm angry they spell it wrong intentionally. What military was there in Pet Cemetery?
I like, how is this like the CIA planted the pets or something? I don't know how this is good.
Oh, all the dead pets were Russian. Isn't that right?
Yes, Russian pet cemetery. The cat just meow. Do svidanya. That's insane. What? Show the next slide.
Oh yeah, but with the Iron Man movies, I think that's kind of well, it just shows that's just stripes. Oh, these are these are the individual posters. I never saw
the Jackal. This is an interesting one. The Jackal is a remake. There's a movie of the Jackal in the 70s. That is kind of a little, if I remember correctly, a little anti-CIA, a little anti-establishment, like most movies were. And this remake with Richard Gere is just like, yeah, CIA. It's all that crap we were talking about at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever Bruce Willis is getting it done by any means necessary or whatever.
And with Iron Man, it's
Day of the Jackal. Sorry, I was just corrected by Kate in the chat. Day of the Jackal is the one that's pretty good 70s movie. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
With Iron Man, they kind of slip it in there because I think most people see that, you know, the Iron Man story is based on a weapons contractor. That's how he made his billions. And there's a lot of talk about, you know, how it's dangerous and how one man shouldn't have the power to have these weapons, and the Iron Man suit is a weapon. And so I think for people who are kind of skeptical and kind of like, is this pro-military? Many of them might walk away if they're not cynical enough, thinking like, oh no, they talked about how weapons contracting is dangerous and stuff like that. And but if you look at the actual, you know, U.S. military, it's like Don Cheadle is this wonderful, pure soldier, and it's not that. That's what I mean by like nowadays they're not just like, the superhero is U.S. military and he salutes and says high five. All right, we beat the Russians. It's more complicated than that, but at the end of the day, you're still left with this positive view of, you know, Don Cheadle.
Well, yeah, because what they did is they took from the comic books that Tony Stark, it was kind of an anti-war comic book, and they kept that in there of he felt guilty of all the people he had been a part of killing. And
but Don Cheadle not so much.
Nah, Don Cheadle doesn't give a shit. Don Cheadle's totally cool with it. So again, they're just taking some rich guy comes up with cool technology and they go, yeah, we're going to need that. Just like, hey, look, Google, this cool search engine. Oh, it's data collection. Yeah. CIA is going to need that. Thank you so much. Like, hey, Mark Zuckerberg, we really need facial recognition. Can you just put some dumb thing in there to get everybody to take photos of themselves and put it up online and we can store it in Jeff Bezos' servers?
You know what they do in both that and in the good Batman movies with Morgan Freeman is they introduce the moral qualm. They introduce the ethical dilemma of, like, Morgan Freeman says, I'm going to quit after this because you're stealing everyone's privacy and watching everyone. And in Iron Man, they say, oh, the weapons one man can't have so much power. But then that one man like saves the city or saves the world. And so at the end, you're like, well, thank goodness that one good guy had access to that weaponry. And that is how people view America. They view America as that one good guy with the dangerous weapon that uses it correctly.
Yeah, well, that's how Americans are taught to view America, is right. In that. I don't think the rest of the world looks at us that way.
No. I meant, yeah, your average American thinks that.
Well, let's scroll through a couple more slides. There's Iron Man 2, Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, Top Gun, and then that's it.
That's it for slides.
That's it.
This actually has been produced by the DOD. They didn't quite give us as much funding as the normal projects, so ran out of slides.
While we're critical of the DOD funding movies that are pro-CIA and pro-war, we're bringing that up. But ultimately, we're glad that they're around, because without them, we wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing that it's always this, and that's like, you know, you talk to most Americans that have been propagandized, you know, like, hey, there's 85,000 dead kids in Yemen. Yeah, but you know, the terrorists there's always some, like, it's unfortunate, but, and it's like, no, you know, Netanyahu uses the same crap nonsense with his propaganda. Well, we're responding, you know, we need to have a right to defend ourselves. And Hamas uses human shields. No, you're just indiscriminately bombing. You don't give a shit. Like, shut up. It's the same nonsense we've all been fed. I mean, again, find me some movies that are produced in Hollywood that are pro-Palestinian.
Right.
Or critical of the Israeli government. Good luck finding that movie. Like, it doesn't exist.
And even some of these movies that have come out recently that really do, first of all, it's many, the ones that really do show the FBI or CIA in a negative light, kind of as like a side plot. You know, for example, the Billie Holiday film mostly shows the FBI in pretty horrible light, but that is because they're not using, like, I would imagine that did not have to get script approval from DOD or CIA or anyone, because they're not using military weaponry in those movies. You know, they don't need to get access to that. Whereas you see something like Black Panther or this latest, you know, what's the title? Wonder Woman Neoliberal. You see these, and they have these scenes of like massive tank moments or MRAPs or fucking all this shit, and Black Hawk helicopters, and it's like that. It shows full on script approval, and it's like that's how you end up with one of the only faultless kind of hero like white guy in the Black Panther film is the CIA guy.
Yep,
we're American. And then there's propaganda that goes forward that isn't connected to DOD approval. I was thinking about, because we haven't talked much about TV shows, which also have tons of this, but I was thinking about like House of Cards. So House of Cards, when it started, and it was going off of the scripts of the original House of Cards, a British show, but its first 2 seasons were pretty excellent. They made U.S. politicians and the guy who ultimately becomes president fucking full-on sociopaths, if not psychopaths, but like willing to murder innocent reporters just to keep a story quiet. And it was a pretty damn good show. And then you get to the 3rd season, and I covered this on Redacted, but it was like 5 years ago. It was a little while ago. You get to the 3rd season, and now one of the major producers of the 3rd season is an organization called Third Way Democrats, which is they're basically Republicans. They claim to be like the third way, not Democrat, not Republican. You know, we're centrist or whatever, but they're just Republicans. And they claim to, you know, they call themselves Third Way Democrats. And that 3rd season of House of Cards becomes all about how Russia's going to get you. And they turn Kevin Spacey, who we're supposed to hate. We're supposed to view him like the first 2 seasons. He is a super villain. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to root for him against the more super villainy, like Vladimir Putin type character whose name is like Vladimir Putinsky or something. And it's like, hold on, you just spent 2 seasons showing us that this guy is a fucking maniac. And now he's the good American president against the evil Russian president. What the fuck?
It's so insane. It is so they've done this like all like, and you see like, oh, that's when they get involved and they decide to change it. It's like Stranger Things was like a really cool series. And then the first season was really cool. And then the second, wasn't it the 3rd season when
it was the 3rd where it got crazy.
Oh, and then it was Russians. The Russians were bad in season 3. And you're like,
it was Russians walking around with machine guns deep in a basement underneath a mall. Like, Because that happened a lot back then in the 80s. There were a lot of like, I don't know if you ever found like a kind of back room at Forever 21. It was Russians with Kalashnikovs just walking around, smoking, usually chain smoking, but just waiting to kill Americans. They just pull people in, or they often worked at the pretzel shop, whatever that place was called, there, and Spencer Gifts. They were really good at selling like those fart noise makers.
Yes.
And but they'd kill Americans. They just pick you off one by one when you go into the changing room.
Yeah, Creed 2 came out around that same time, where he fights Drago's kid. It's just like, wow. Not only are you unoriginal in Hollywood, you're just keeping this Russia's bad thing going. And the Icarus one, the best doc about Putin doping, cheating about doping or whatever, which he probably did, but like, oh, American athletes don't cheat and dope. Like, I don't know, Lance Armstrong, I don't know. Has he done anything bad and writing for the post office? Like,
the idea of doing like a Russia's doping documentary while the Lance Armstrong story is still fresh in everyone's mind is like hilarious. And then of course there was the, full on punch you in the face propaganda of the Oscar winning White Helmets documentary.
It's a flat out lie.
Which had all of like Hollywood like on their feet cheering, like, oh, we're saving Syria with our bombs.
I know, and just it's amazing. And again, it's people like Jessica Chastain at that award show going, yes, like, oh man, well,
so amazing. Well,
are you proud to be an American? I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I was gonna say, like, and let's be clear. A lot of the propaganda that's in American movies is just because your average American has been so propagandized that even your average screenwriter believes a lot of the shit. So it's like a lot of the time they probably don't have to step in and change things. But I was noticing that there was a time period in like the 90s where the Soviet Union had just fallen. So you weren't making those Rocky movies with Drago anymore. And there was some cooperation between the US and the Soviet Union, right? Or it wasn't the Soviet Union anymore, Russia. And the US didn't really have a grand like enemy. And although I guess this was around the time of the first Iraq War, even that, it was like Americans didn't believe really that Iraqis were going to get us. And so there was kind of no grand bad guy for Hollywood to push on us. And if you watch some of these films from that time, because I was watching like the first and second Die Hard, it's like some weird like German accented amalgamation of like, it's a German anarchist group or something. Like they didn't know who to make the evil people. And then after 2001, it's just all like, Arab terrorists. But there's this window where they don't know who to make the bad guys. And in Die Hard 2, it's like American military. It's like a rogue American military group.
Yep, we found a new enemy in 2001. Woo!
Yeah.
Crisis averted. We don't have to just have, I'm from somewhere Eastern Europe, bad guy country. Like
indiscriminate accent going to kill you.
You know that this accent is only from bad guy. Only bad guy have accent like this, Lee Camp.
Exactly.
So, well, it's exciting. We live in an exciting time.
We do indeed. Thank God, we can be so heavily propagandized, and much of it. There's a fight going on right now because what was it? That HBO said that Wonder Woman 1984 is back on their streaming service, and then some other celebrity came out and said, we said we wanted what's it called, the Snyder Cut, or we said we wanted the Snyder Cut. We didn't say we wanted Genocide Barbie. That's what she called Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, Genocide Barbie. Yeah, she was in the Israeli army, man. She's and she puts out these like both sides conflict tweets rather than calling out Israel. And it's Genocide Barbie, man. Well, I think, is that our show? Do we have more to talk about?
I think that might be the show. I think that's it. Yeah.
Government secrets. End of show.
That sounded like a saxophone player like in a war zone.
He's just playing while he's just getting bombed. He's like, I don't care. I'm playing no matter what.
Listen,
he's playing my Valentine. Well, dude, what do you got cooking? What's on your hot potato ticket?
New redacted tonight. My hot potato.
That means
are you flirting with me again, Graham? My new episode of Redacted tonight comes out tonight, and one of the main segments that I cover is I tear apart the whole Uyghur forced labor nonsense in China. That is pretty hilarious if you really break it down. So yeah, check that out. You can find it at leecamp.com. And of course, I got my other podcast, Common Censored. And yeah, it's all at leecamp.com.
Nice. Well, thanks, you hot potato.
What's on your mind? Graham didn't get his lunch, and so it's all food references right now. What kind of spicy asparagus are you cooking up, Lee?
What's your favorite? What kind of vegan smoothie weekend are you going to have, buddy? Yeah, so just check out Political Vigilante. We stream 4 or 5 days a week. And of course, join Rockfin. Go to rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. I do a Rockfin premium members live stream every Monday night at 8 o'clock Pacific time. And we do the Political Vigilante game show. So it's a lot of fun. And then just go to GrahamElwood.com. I have a show May 30th in Waikiki. I'm doing 2 shows. It's the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. So if you're in Oahu or planning a vacation, come out to those shows, and all the tickets and everything are available at GrahamElwood.com. So that's it, buddy. Episode 42, hot potato.
Can you believe it, man? We're 10 away from a year. Episode hot potato.
We're halfway to 82, man. I'm just excited. Or 84. Shit. It's going to be so fun.
Cool, man. Well, thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
All right, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Later.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at GrahamElwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.